And it's that kind of thing. It's a very, I guess, lonely journey in what I'm experiencing. That's why I wanted to make this film, because I hadn't had the opportunity to be able to grieve my mother and know who she was. And that was really what this journey was about. It was about finding out who she was and being able to grieve. Everyone had the opportunity, although terrible circumstances, to be able to go to the funeral and have that moment, and I never had that opportunity.
The People's Channel.
It's 9 p.m, I'm Josh Howie. Tonight, as a leading TV producer slams British broadcasters for running scared of Ofcom, should channels dare to flout the rules as he suggests? We'll tackle that in tonight's Head-to-Head. Plus, staggering new research suggests Stonehenge may have been designed to unify Indigenous Brits against European immigrants nearly 5,000 years ago. Also, as yet another female prison officer is allegedly filmed having sex with a male inmate, why does this pattern seem to be repeating in prisons across the country? We find out more with a leading psychotherapist. And the so-called godfather of artificial intelligence warns the technology could see the end of humanity within 30 years. Could AI kill us sooner rather than later? We'll also bring you the very first of tonight's newspaper front pages as soon as they land. Joining me this evening, Head of Communication for the IEA, Reem Ibrahim, former Tory MP Tom Hunt, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anisiobi. Hello! We have a very big show to cover over the next 2 hours. Let's get cracking! At the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs is the physiological: food, water, shelter, the basics. Unless they're covered, unless our population is covered literally, people are not progressing up to social needs, which means we're not progressing as a society. So it is that we should all be very concerned about a YouGov poll for shelter reported in today's Guardian that 2/3 of working private renters, nearly 5 million people, are struggling to pay their rent. 5% of working renters are already in arrears. And remember, these are the people who are in work, playing the game. They're following the rules, and the system isn't working for them. The government obviously recognises this as a major issue, putting house building as a priority with the target of 1.5 million homes built during this parliament. But then all of our previous governments have paid lip service to the same problem. Actually, getting a grip on it is now the matter. Getting migration under control is now the part of this equation. But what hasn't been revealed yet is how many of these homes, if any, and what kind of investment the government are going to be putting into social housing. A recent report called for a 11.5 billion pound a year investment that would allow for controlled lower rents in 90,000 new homes, with the cost recouped in 3 years. Something has to happen, and very soon, because if working renters, many of them young people, are not even able to pay their rent, then forget expecting them to somehow save enough to ever buy their own home. How are we even going to expect them to afford to start a family? My mortgage payments are about 1/3 of what I used to pay on rent, and for something 3 times the size. And the situation is much worse than before we got on a property ladder over a decade ago. And the only person that could help us out, and the only reason we can afford a deposit, is because my wife and I lived for 5 years with my grandma. That's how we say. We got married there, we had our first child there. And not every person can come and live at my grandma's. So we need to start having kids, and a lot of them now. The replacement fertility rate necessary for a population to sustain itself is 2.1 babies. In the UK, it's presently 1.44 and falling. It hasn't been 2.1 since the 70s, which is why our leaders have traditionally turned to migration as the solution. If that is going to get cut down, having babies is the only answer. The UK is presently doing better than other countries, with the only major EU country, not a country in the EU, or in Europe, oh gosh, don't get me started, not facing an immediate major working age population decline. And they're getting desperate out there. The EU birth rate overall is lowest in 60 years. Germany is at a 10-year record low with 1.3 million vacancies in the workforce. Elsewhere in Europe, entire Mediterranean villages have been emptied. Further afield in Tokyo, they're implementing a 4-day work week to encourage people to have kids. And in China, they're cold calling married couples to inquire about family planning. They're offering prenatal body checks. They're giving cash to parents to have more kids. Universities are introducing love courses for single students. I imagine teaching things like putting the seat down and the most efficient way as a couple to pack the dishwasher. Over here, things aren't necessarily as bad as that. But unless we can offer young working people a secure future, which means secure accommodation, we're not far behind. So let's get the thoughts of my panel. Like I said, Head of Communications at the IEA, Reem Ibrahim, former Tory MP Tom Hunt, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anisiobi. I'm looking at a youngish panel here, so I don't know if any of this resonated. Of course, you're all successful, so I imagine further of this. But this is, like I said, it's concerning for all of us as a society, right?
It's absolutely concerning, and I think that the housing crisis is the biggest political and economic problem facing this country alone. We have huge swathes of regulation and red tape that means that it's almost impossible to build anything in this country. And that affects not just the housing crisis, but also energy infrastructure and the conglomeration of those kind of buildings being built in this country in the first place. We are one of the worst in the world. So I think that ultimately the solution to this problem is building more houses, right? It's economics 101. If you want to increase the supply of something, the prices will come down. The more that we build, the more affordable housing will be in this country. Now, the problem is there are many political problems that face this problem. So effectively, we've got huge swathes of the not in my backyarders, the NIMBYs, that don't want more housing development in this country, that would actually rather see housing being built not in their area, but somewhere else. What we actually need is to completely liberate it. And I actually think that if you are not the owner of the land, you should have no say whatsoever about what is being built on it.
But I don't think it's just about building houses. We need to then improve transportation, because I would love to live in Birmingham. That's where I'm originally from. I live in London because the work for me is in London, and I can't go and live in Watford because it means I'll be travelling an hour and a bit on train just to get into London to do my job. So we need to improve the transport and also move and also it is to me the cost exactly the cost of trains is ridiculous. So then it's a case of a lot of us are forced to then stay living in the city when we'd rather live further out. Building housing is obviously a core part of it, but we need to improve everything.
Well, I think we need to abolish the green belt entirely and actually build in those areas that housing is actually needed, right? If we had a proper economy where supply and demand is what dictates where housing is being built, then we wouldn't have this problem. Unfortunately, the government gets in the way, the nanny state gets in the way and tells developers where they can and cannot build.
It's not just that, is it? I mean, keeping the green belt artificially inflates the prices, and those are the voters. Tom, obviously, you've actually had.
Well, I think it's a danger here. There's two extremes. I think the one extreme is we just have no restrictions at all.
Yeah.
And we just any idea about local people wanting to have a view about the impact of housing, of the type of housing, and they should be completely cut out of the process completely.
Yes, they should.
I know it's a pretty unusual view, but you're entitled to, of course. It's a pretty unusual view, but
Why? Why shouldn't you be able to build on land that you own?
I think it's right. If you've got a community, a village, for example, and there's a proposal to build huge numbers of housing, poorly designed housing. Without the local infrastructure in place, I think it's entirely legitimate for those local people to have concerns. So I think there's a danger that this debate becomes a bit too polarised.
I completely disagree.
You've made that clear, but at the end of the day, whilst we have net migration at almost 1 million a year. We're sort of, we're built. I mean, even if the Labour Party, who, by the way, won't be successful in building all of these houses as they were going to build, even if they were, with the kind of levels of immigration I think we're going to see under this Labour government,
get swallowed up anyway.
I don't think we'll be moving any further forward.
But because I know you know a lot about this as well. But do you see how it ties into this birth rate issue? And how we're just not focusing on that, and we could well be in trouble, right?
You're absolutely right, and I do think that the housing crisis absolutely affects the birth rate. I mean, the fact that young couples girls in their early 20s, like me, cannot afford their own homes means that we're going to be starting to have families a lot later than we otherwise would. I mean, my mother was married in her 20s and she had me before the age of 30. Most women in my generation don't want to have children because, quite frankly, they can't afford to do so. And I actually think that having family homes is one of the most important things that we could do, not just for the housing crisis and economically this will have huge impacts, but actually culturally. The fact that we're building family homes, the fact that we're allowing young British people to actually be able to afford their own home and start a family, that is what British way of life should look like. And unfortunately, the economic situation means that that's not possible. I totally disagree with Tom. I think that if the local people, the NIMBYs, are some of the most dangerous political forces in this country because they are the very people that are the problem.
Well, I think we're talking about extremes here.
I think. Okay. So she's saying that any local person that wants to express a view,
they can express their view. They should be able to block housing development.
You're just smearing everyone as being a NIMBY. I think it is.
No, I'm not just. I'm saying NIMBYs, people that want to block housing development, should not be allowed to do so.
But arguably, communities should be able to have a say in their community.
No, they shouldn't.
So local people shouldn't be able to have a say. You just said that they should be able to have a say.
No, I said they should be allowed to express their opinion, however.
But you just said they shouldn't be able to have a say.
I did not say that. I said that they should have. I said they should have every right to freely express their opinions. We've got free speech, hopefully, in this country. However, they should absolutely not be allowed to block housing development. And those people that seek to do so are the very problem in this country.
From my experience, I was a councillor, in a local area, and what I saw, there was one village just outside, is in Cambridgeshire, so an area with significant housing cost issues. There's this one village which was pretty hostile to development, a record of opposing new housing. And it's because it saw this new housing as being a negative thing, as bringing negatives. What we did there is we introduced community land trusts, where actually the local people had a lot more say in designing the new housing, so it was in keeping with the character of the area. And we also saw local people with a tie with a local area being prioritised for that housing, particularly the affordable rent option. And actually, all of a sudden, we saw a community that was against housing become pro-housing. They wanted more housing through a CLT route because they saw that this wasn't being done to the community, but they were shaping it. It is possible to get more housing and actually to get communities to back it, but not through a kind of very dismissive approach, which is kind of like, nope, you're you're all NIMBYs. That's not going to get us anywhere, that kind of language.
That's totally fine, and I'm really glad that approach worked in that particular area, and I think that's fantastic. We should be trying to get local people on board. However, if there are local areas of people that are lobbying councils for those privileges, they are lobbying their councils to block housing development, they are restricting economic growth in this country, and those are the problems. And my question to all of those people that actively lobby to block housing development is, would you want your grandchildren to live in a safe, clean house, or would you want your grandchildren to live in squalor housing?
Well, the question that I would ask is, following on from that is, do you want grandchildren?
Yes,
because that's the issue.
Stop.
Now, this village that you talk about, if they hadn't embraced that village in another 10, 20 years would maybe not even exist.
It was ossifying.
Yeah.
So what we were seeing was that local people from that village couldn't afford to live in the village and moving elsewhere. And it was becoming a dormitory village.
And I believe that's happening, JJ. Do you see that happening in a wider scale in this country?
Yeah, but what we saw through the community land trust is all of a sudden, like, for example, the bar lady was one of the people who qualified for one of these homes. People who performed key functions that allowed that community to function were benefiting from that community land trust.
So I just want to hear JJ.
Well, yeah, but you said about you lived with your grandma, which, I mean, we all laughed about it, but actually, I'm from a background where intergenerational family living is completely normal. It's not a case of you get to 21 and you have to go out and move out and buy your own house.
Same.
It's quite normal for you to be raised in a house with your grandparents and with the younger and with babies all in the same house with your mum and dad. I don't see why we're not doing more of that in this country. And in terms of paying people in other countries, they're paying people to have babies. I'm okay with that. I don't see what the issue is. In Dubai, when I lived in Dubai, the local Emiratis were given money for getting married. They're giving a plot of land and they're giving money for every child they're having.
Socialist, isn't it?
But I think, but it works. But it works for them.
But the question is, where does the money come from? And it's ultimately taxpayers that are footing the bill for that. I don't believe that taxpayers, everyday working people, the shelf stacker in Tesco's, should be required to pay taxes towards other people to have families. I don't think that's.
But they will also. But you're assuming that those people who are working are not going to have kids themselves. It all comes back. It all comes back together.
Why should their taxpayer money be spent on that? I don't think
you haven't got kids, and your taxes still pay for schools in this country.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So okay, so everyone should just pay only pay for school if you've got kids.
Privatise it. Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Well, we solved it. I guess I wasn't looking necessarily for the 3 or 4 of us to actually solve this. What I really am trying to point out is that I think we've got a real issue here, and we need to get on top of it.
How many kids do you have?
5.
Oh my God! I was going to say you should have more, but no, actually, you've done your part.
But that's what I'm trying to do, is get the government to give me some money. That's what it all really comes up. One monologue is just more money for the government. OK, it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win £50,000 in tax cash. You could use it, like I said. It's the biggest cash-free prize that we have given away, and it could be yours. Here's all the details that you need to win a whopping £50,000. Coming up next, TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons goes head-to-head with former Labour advisor Matthew Corbett on whether British broadcasters need to be braver in standing up to their regulator Ofcom. This one could get a bit feisty. This is Josh Howie Tonight, only on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Restaurant St. Bart's executive head chef Johnny Crowe creates ramen with a British twist, using only the finest UK-sourced produce. As the only restaurant in London to hold both a Michelin star and a green Michelin star, St. Bart's emphasises sustainability and the diversity of British ingredients. Johnny joins me now. Johnny, congratulations on having these 2 Michelins. How do you get a Michelin green star?
Probably a better question for the inspectors, but I mean, I think it's down to a lot of hard work.
What hoops do you have to go through?
So I think it's working every day on it. The sustainability isn't something that you just achieve and then therefore you have it and you can sort of relax. It's about every day trying to be better, trying to make a restaurant and a business that is overly sustainable.
So what things do you do to make it sustainable?
So one of the main things that we've really tried to do is focusing on British produce, and actually, you know, part of that is about sustainability and food miles. A massive part of it for us was also about sort of helping the British economy and the farming economy and our fisheries as well. But yeah, no, the idea...
We have a lot of farms near St. Bart's, which is in the heart of the City of London.
Well, funnily enough, there's an amazing collective called Shrub Provisions, who we use a hell of a lot, who work with farmers all around East Sussex. So it makes a difference from flying it in from Kenya or somewhere else like that. But no, like a big part of it was, one, using British produce to cut down on food miles, but also helping sustain our farming industry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News Tonight with Josh Howie, only on GB News, obviously. It's time now for our head-to-head. Head-to-head. The brains behind Hollyoaks, Grange Hill and Brookside, Phil Redmond, says the courage has gone out of broadcasting. Obviously not here. The famous producer believes that television bosses shouldn't be afraid to flout Ofcom rules, as the audiences want to see grittier issues represented on screen. But with tight broadcasting rules applied to British telly, should TV bosses be less afraid to flout Ofcom rules, as suggested by Redmond? Let me know your thoughts by heading to gbnews.com/your say, or tweet me at gbnews. And while you're there, why not vote in our poll? I'm going to bring you those results in a few short minutes. But first, going head-to-head on this tonight, our TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbett. Welcome, gentlemen. So let's start with this. Matthew, do you agree with this or not?
No, I think he makes some fair points about, an element of class snobbery within production TV studios and stuff like that. But it just sounds a little bit like emotional amnesia. And, things were a little bit better back in my day. I'm a little bit too young to remember the heydays of Grange Hill, but it didn't strike me as a particularly courageous show. I think it spoke to people of that age. But if he wants to talk about grittier TV programmes that need to be made, he's not been watching. You look at things like Michaela Coel in I May Destroy You, and touching on how the complexities of sexual assault and how that can be handled. The documentary about the 3 girls in Rochdale and how that was handled. And It's a Sin touching on the 1980s and HIV. Now, they were only made in the last couple of years, so I'm not quite sure where he's been, really, when he talks about courage and grittier issues.
I think he might be referring more to children's television. I mean, Ryan Mark, how do you feel about what Matthew's just said?
Well, I disagree. Obviously, I'm fully in support of Phil Redmond and his views. I feel like TV has become incredibly sanitized. I'm 24, I represent Gen Z, and I feel like Ofcom are really reflecting a lot of what my peers think about everything nowadays when it comes to the media. And it's a shame we're seeing shows like Little Britain that I really enjoyed, that I remember back in the early 2000s, Queer as Folk, and also storylines in EastEnders, for example, like back in the 1980s when they challenged HIV storylines, even Grange Hill, where they would address teenage pregnancies and a lot of topics that I guess would go against the broadcasting code that is set out by Ofcom, which I think is becoming increasingly draconian. Even GB News, I mean, they've been penalised by Ofcom, and I think it's a shame that you have this regulatory body that really doesn't allow anything to be put out there that could be mildly controversial. And I think we're just seeing TV and creativity be stripped. And I get it. I get the fear creators have and writers, etc., because they don't want to face the backlash the complaints that come from viewers that are writing to Ofcom. They don't want to deal with the repercussions, so therefore they're making content that sort of appeases the likes of Ofcom and the nutters that work there that seem to want to make everything so happy and la-di-da and smiley, but actually that doesn't address real life and the complexities and the upset. And I don't think the middle class people that work at Ofcom and even the writers that you see behind these shows fully understand.
I mean, Matthew, do you really not get a sense that there is any level of self-censorship out there amongst writers, amongst what we're seeing on television?
I think there's always going to be an element of what will people think of think of this. That's normally sort of people's better judgment. I think the more interesting thing is Ryan said a lot of words there, and about really saying a lot. I'd be intrigued as a TV personality if he's aware of, if he can name me 2 programmes that he's aware that have been blocked by this censorship, and actually a couple of things therefore that have pushed the paper.
Yeah, but that's the problem, isn't it, Ryan, is that we don't actually even get to see these shows because when a writer, and I've written for television, I've written for BBC Radio, and there is this self-censorship there, so this stuff doesn't even get out there sometimes, or most of the time.
Well, that's it, because people do complain. I mean, there have been shows in the past where, for example, you look at Blackadder, there's a lot of censorship now. I mean, Little Britain was actually removed from streaming services. I mean, I used to enjoy watching episodes back on BBC iPlayer, but that's completely now, that's gone. You can't actually watch any of these old episodes because the regulator is preventing these shows from getting out there and for audiences now to enjoy comedy and satire. And I think there's a lack of understanding in terms of it is a joke. These trigger healthy conversations. If it is offensive, that can actually lead to positive change. But instead, they don't want to have these shows or anything that could be potentially offensive available for audiences to watch. And as you were saying, Josh, writers now don't want to put out content because they know there will be backlash and Ofcom will receive complaints from audiences, and it has triggered investigations in the past. I can't remember the name of the show, but it focused on media satire regarding to paedophilia. That received 3,000 complaints.
Day to day.
Well, yes. So this is what I mean. When they are presented with the risk of triggering investigations, therefore they're not going to put out content that is risky because of the ramifications. And I think the other guest doesn't really understand. He can accuse me of speaking a lot of words and not making any points, but he can make monotonous, dreary points that I don't think really amount to anything.
Look at you two. We really are going head-to-head here. This is probably the most controversial thing that we're going to see on telly. Matthew, do you think that there are issues that this is actually going to get resolved or not? Do you think that people standing up now and saying, you know what, we do want things to be a little more gritty? And I hear your point that you made at the beginning. I think the TV shows you mentioned absolutely do fit that remit of pushing things a little bit. But at the same time, there is this sensitivity there that seems to be permeating culture in terms of trigger warnings and whatnot.
Yeah, I think audiences have become more diverse with different palettes. That's just society moving on. This is what we see. We see it in legislation, with it being whether things are seen as grossly offensive. I think society changes its mind on what is offensive all the time. The example Ryan used of Little Britain is prime example of that. I think we all watched it 20 odd years ago and thought it was quite funny, and times move on and people go, well, actually, maybe that's not quite funny anymore. I actually would add, I think it was a BBC editorial decision that took it down. It wasn't necessarily the regulator. I think the point I would probably agree with Ryan on is the fact that this is a class issue. I speak to people like Craig Cash, who wrote great comedies like Early Doors and The Royal Family, which are still on the BBC iPlayer, and I've watched this Christmas, and they say they still struggle to get things in with the BBC now, even as award-winning producers, directors and all that, and actors, purely because there's people there that don't get it. I would say Ofcom, as much as it's an important regulator, and we shouldn't be going the route of places like America, and the sort of mental asylum that can seem at times, I think it's a class issue. I think the regulator is important, but we need more people of diverse class within TV and production.
I think, Matthew, that's an excellent point. I mean, Brian, Mark, what do you think about that? Because I'd say from just my own experiences of working in that side of television is the issue may not actually be Ofcom at all. It's the gatekeepers. And it's them sort of anticipating or trying to plan what people want, but they're very disconnected from the rest of the population.
Yeah, I think diversity in terms of writers is important. And, I think working in television, I mean, I came from a reality show. I've met a lot of producers and writers from the production company, from various different shows. And they all seem to come from a certain background. And I don't think they fully understand what actually happens, and they perceive different things. And therefore, the output is based on whatever they want or what they think audiences will enjoy. And then you get this very narrow output that I think is unfunny. It isn't offensive. It doesn't challenge. These are all things that people should want to see when they watch television. And I think that's why we're seeing a decline in television, and people are going online because there's less control, it's less draconian, and you can put content out there that audiences can enjoy. I think there's a hub of creativity, especially when it comes to online, I think especially nowadays. But the guest mentioned Little Britain and how it might be offensive now. But I think offence is good. Why can't we offend? We're seeing this trajectory now in television and other mediums where we don't want to offend. We are being risk averse, like Phil Redmond said. Why can't we be risky with the content we make? Why can't we be creative and actually upset people? What's wrong with being upset? Especially people my age. They seem to be so scared of being upset. I want to offend people because I think that can lead to healthy conversations, and you can talk about things. I mean, the thing with Little Britain, it was prejudice, but actually that addressed and sort of, it made a mockery of the people that were being prejudiced. And these can lead to good conversations and healthy discussion. But we're not seeing any of that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally up for more people being upset, always. So thank you so much. We have TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbett. Excellent debate, guys. Thank you very, very much. So, who do you agree with? Do the UK broadcasters need to stand up to Ofcom? Well, Alan on X says, an unelected activist political body that needs replacing. Andy on Your Say says, Ofcom have become politicised and with a full leaning to the left. And Harry on Your Say says, what Ofcom should do is ignore those who are offended and let people find their on-off buttons like we used to years ago. All excellent points. Your verdict is also now in. 93% of you agree that UK broadcasters need to stand up to Ofcom, while 7% of you don't. I've got to be honest, I am not surprised by that poll. Coming up, new research suggests that Stonehenge, I like to call it Stonehenge because I'm like from the street, could in fact have been built to unify indigenous Brits against European immigrants almost 5,000 years ago. We find out more from esteemed historian Martin Whittock after this short break.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into this weekend, there's still going to be lots of cloud and murk around, also some drizzle, but likely to see some brighter skies by the time we reach Sunday. And where we're seeing those areas of more persistent rain and drizzle is just to the far northwest of the country, where we do have a frontal system. And elsewhere, we do have high pressure, bringing lots of settled conditions, but lots of cloud and moisture trapped underneath that high. And it remains fairly similar as we head into the overnight period. Still plenty of cloud around, a chance we could see some drizzle with more persistent areas of rain just to the far northwest of Scotland, slowly edging its way into western parts of Northern Ireland by the early hours of Saturday. And those cloudy skies means temperatures aren't going to change too much compared to what they were during the day, mostly in the mid-single figures. To start off the weekend then, across the northwest of Scotland, a damp start with outbreaks of rain, but to the very far north we may see some clearer spells, though we can't rule out some showers just moving in around coasts. And elsewhere across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, still plenty of cloud around, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just to the west of Northern Ireland, and fairly similar across England and Wales too. Cloudy with some fog around, some plenty of grey skies around to start the weekend too, and still some drizzly outbreaks, particularly around hilly areas. And it remains fairly similar through much of the day, though those longer spells of rain just moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England towards the end of the day. And clearer to the north of this, may see some sunny spells here, but still plenty of showers moving in around coasts. And temperatures around the same, once again struggling under cloudier skies, so feeling chilly where you do see the grey skies. And then for Sunday, once again, still plenty of cloud around, but by the afternoon likely to see a few more sunnier spells, but still plenty of rain across Scotland and some quite strong winds here at times for the second half of the weekend too. But on the whole, likely the better day of the weekend for many, but turning unsettled as we head into the new year with strong winds and some heavy outbreaks of rain.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Josh Howie. Landmark new research by experts suggests that Stonehenge was built to bring ancient Britons together against foreign invaders. The boulders are thought to have come from across Britain as a sign of solidarity during a period of widespread immigration nearly 5,000 years ago. This new theory comes after the discovery of one of the stones coming from, in fact, Scotland rather than from Wales had long been thought. To tell us more now, I'm joined by the historian Martin Whittock. Martin, hello. How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening. So, it seems like every day there's another theory about Stonehenge. We, as a culture, we seem to be fascinated by it. What do you think about this new theory?
Well, we've known for quite some time now that Stonehenge has the most amazing reach and connectivity. For a long time, we've known, for example, that the so-called blue stones at Stonehenge came from the Preseli Mountains in South Wales, in Pembrokeshire. Yeah. And we've now identified the quarries where they were cut. That in itself was really impressive. Recently, animal bones have been found at Stonehenge from complete animals, which when they studied the animal carcasses, you can tell, in this case, where people or animals grew up. They found that these pigs were walked all the way from northern England, southern Scotland, to get to Stonehenge before being butchered and eaten there. Quite extraordinary. About 20 years ago, the Amesbury Archer and the Boscombe Bowman, which were how they're termed by archaeologists just to identify where they were found, seem to have come from Central Europe. So it's quite extraordinary. But what's happened at the moment is this new discovery has suggested that the altar stone, which probably was put into Stonehenge somewhere about 2,500 to 2000 BC, and we should remember that Stonehenge was being continually built between about 3,100 BC and about 1,500 BC. It wasn't a one-off operation, but at some point...
They were heavy stones, right? They were heavy stones. They needed a bit of time.
Well, yeah, but not only that, it would have looked different at different points. So at some points, it would have looked a less impressive monument. Some points, stones were brought in and erected in one combination. Then they were moved around and put into other combinations. It's a bit like, if you think about a cathedral, they spent centuries and centuries and centuries building them, and they're still doing things to them today. Well, that's a bit like Stonehenge. Whatever it was, religious or political activity that drove it, it was happening over centuries and centuries and centuries. New generation adding to it, building to it, reassembling it. And the altar stone, which went in, we think about between 2,500 and 2020 BC, came from Scotland. Now, this is extraordinary. So you're talking about a monument where lots of the stones came from the Marlborough Downs. Those are the big sarsen stones. But blue stones came from South Wales. This altar stone came from Scotland. We've got people that came from Central Europe to visit this place or come and live here. We've got pigs being walked down, from Scotland to be butchered here. It really is a quite extraordinary monument. Now, one interpretation of this is that it's about kind of a unifying project to bring Britain together because it's a time of great migration and flux. I think this is probably a bit too simplistic because I don't think there was a sense of Britishness at the time. I mean, even when the Romans came around the beginning of the modern era, AD 43 when they invaded, there was no unified Britishness. So I think that's probably putting too much of a modern lens on it. I think what's happening is not so much a kind of a British reaction to foreigners coming in, but that Stonehenge has always been a very, very complicated monument, which has drawn together people from right across Britain, but also right across Western Europe. So clearly, is this a religious site? Is this a political site? We need to remind ourselves this is prehistory. No one's writing down the reasons. So we tend to view it through the lens of today, and we read it through the 21st century lens, because we don't know how these people understood their world. But what we do know is that Stonehenge was some kind of connecting factor that drew together people from right across the island of Britain. But it was beyond that as well. It also brought together people from right across Western Europe. And some big changes were going on. We know, for example, that between the Mesolithic, that's the Middle Stone Age, and the New Stone Age, there was a huge genetic turnover in this country. Towards the end of Stonehenge's life, from the Neolithic, that's the farming period, the New Stone Age, to the Bronze Age, there again was a huge genetic changeover in this country. Now, this doesn't mean to say people came in and massacred people and drove them off to the west and what have you, but we have to imagine that people are moving great distances and coming to Britain and going from Britain to Europe to the most extraordinary degree. So I think it's too simple to say this is just uniting the British people against the foreign immigrants, as it were. I think it's about a much more complicated project that unifies people who are coming to this area of what is now Wiltshire from across Western Europe, from across Britain. I think it is a much bigger project going on here than just the Brits declaring themselves as being British as opposed to the new people who are arriving. But it'll get people talking for a long time from now on, because Stonehenge continues to inspire the imagination, and its reach is geographically quite extraordinary.
Yes, well, literally, I guess. I mean, I'd never heard this idea that it had taken thousands of years to build, and I guess that explains why there are so many different theories about it, because I guess at any particular time, one of those theories could have applied and then be changed when it gets moved to a different function.
Yes, and not only that, if you think about a monument that started in 3100 BC and ends 1500 BC, that's a very, very long time. It's more than just a series of constructions. Ideologies may have changed in that time. The people who finish it may have thought different things to the people who started it. So we can't just assume the past is some kind of monolithic block in which everybody in the past thought the same thing until suddenly, they enter history and leave prehistory. I suspect, as well as the movements of people and ideas, there was a lot of ideologies going on. And as I say, it may well have been that the people that started Stonehenge in the early Neolithic, early New Stone Age, actually had very, very different religious beliefs and ideologies to the people that finished it in the early Bronze Age. We'd like to know so much more, but what we don't have is an insight into their worldview, because there are no written records. But that, of course, will keep the archaeologists and the historians speculating for generations to come.
Well, Martin Whittock, thank you so much. You know, I do that drive every so often to visit my mum, and now I can entertain my kids for about 15 minutes or so, telling them everything you just said. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure. I live very close to it too. Every time I drive past it, I think, wow, that's quite a monument to the past. Thank you for having me on the show.
Cheers. I'll pop in for a cup of tea. Still to come, as yet another female prison guard is allegedly caught on camera having sex with a male inmate. What is going on behind closed cell doors in Britain's prisons? We speak to leading psychotherapist Camelin Kaur next.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's a lot of fine weather to come across many of the usual holiday hotspots in southern Europe through the next few days. A different story across the southeast of Europe, though. Here's Storm Elena bringing some heavy rain, strong winds across parts of Greece into Cyprus and into Turkey as well. Elsewhere though, like I said, lots of dry weather on offer, and with that lots of sunshine too. So not looking too bad at all if you're heading across many parts of southern Europe through the next couple of days. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The BBC has been branded jaw-achingly stupid, not by me, by the way, over its decision to cast black and ethnic minority actors in the historical drama of Wolf Hall. Now, is this a forward-thinking idea or nonsense? Are we rewriting history? Henry, I mean, the Tudors were real-life people. They were pretty much white.
Well, some of these shows depart so much from historical context anyway that maybe it doesn't make any difference. But I think just generally, we've got a problem in this country with portraying history in its correct sense. You can't change history. And I think it's about the motivation. If the motivation is to sort of, to some sort of, you know, to make a political point, then I think it's wrong.
What I find kind of tedious about people finding this instant jaw-droppingly stupid, Jesus was portrayed by somebody who's half Slovak and half Irish. Moses was portrayed in the Exodus by an Englishman. So, you know, same with Anne Boleyn, you know, was portrayed by Natalie Portman, who is Jewish. So if this is the one thing that's getting people angry, then there's something deeper within that rage, because I think Hollywood's been doing that, where people...
When you say something deeper, do you think there is a hidden racism and people are complaining about this?
Well, I think for some, maybe yes. I can't speak for everybody because you know, this news dropped today. I don't know why they are thinking that it's egregious, but there absolutely must be some underlying racism if this is the only one that you're upset about.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Josh Howie. A female prison officer has been arrested after she was allegedly filmed having sex with a prisoner at Northamptonshire Prison. That's my favourite prison, by the way. This comes just months after Linda de Sousa Abre pled guilty to misconduct in a public office earlier this year after being filmed having sex with an inmate in a cell at HMP Wandsworth. 29 female prison guards have been dismissed for having sex with male inmates in the past 3 years alone. All this leads to one question: why does it keep happening? To tell us more now, I welcome Camlyn Kaur, a psychotherapist who has studied the phenomenon of female prison officers falling for cons. Welcome. I read your article today in the Daily Mail. It was excellent. It was very interesting. What's this about? You talk about the bad boys. Bad boy energy. Do you get that from me, by the way? Bad boy energy?
Yeah, it's bad boy energy. It's like the adrenaline, the excitement, the thrill-seeking, the sense of adventure. And this is what a lot of these inmates represent. They've pushed past societal expectations. They've gone against societal expectations and norms and expectations. So they present that bad boy energy, which for a female can be a very magnetic pull, which is why a lot of these relationships take place, despite the fact that they're forbidden and they're not allowed and they're not healthy and they're not right.
It's amazing that it keeps on happening. So there's a psychological, I guess, need at play here. And is it also that a lot of these women are quite young?
I don't think it's the age thing. I think it's the actual environment, Josh. If you think about it, it's a very isolated environment. It's a very contained environment as well. So that can actually represent a lot of loneliness. It's a very sterile environment as well. If you think about it, everything's really cold, detached. There's no emotion to it. So if someone's showing you affection or attention, or you're getting that validation, and you're already experiencing, say, low self-worth, low self-esteem, then you can easily be influenced by those qualities in that kind of a dynamic. And what a lot of prison environments actually represent is they're not normal environments, they're out of the norm. So what is actually abnormal outside, it starts to feel normal in that kind of a setting.
So if this is a known issue, what are the prisons actually doing to tackle it?
I don't think they're actually able to do anything. It will be just like policies, but I do think the policies need to be made clearer, and perhaps the consequences need to be a bit more severe as well, just for the safety of everybody involved, because this needs to be a protected space. So I think, yes, there's probably already policies in place, which every workplace has, but I think either they need to be monitored more, or they need to be, the consequences or the punishment needs to be a bit more as well. But I think also what's happened now is there's lots of devices, there's lots of digital technology, which makes it harder to actually keep on top of everything, because people can actually stay in touch through messages. Literally. So it actually makes it harder to manage and monitor these things as well. So I think there's lots of different dynamics that have to be considered. But I do think at the crux of it is perhaps better training, better infrastructure, and actually having a duty of care to these female guards as well.
Yeah, well, this is there's quite a high turnover, isn't there, within the prison service? I understand it is a tough job. It's not very well paid, particularly. And is this right that in Wales this has happened 18 times or something? 18 in one prison? And how can I get into this prison?
How do you get into this prison? I have no idea. I think you're asking the wrong person. But those figures don't surprise me at all, Josh. I think those figures probably are about right. And this is something that happens, and it will continue to happen until it's actually looked at on a larger scale, and until there's institutional changes put into place.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't really say this, but our producer, he's a friend in this particular prison, or a friend's boyfriend in this prison. You'd think that the one sort of silver lining of your partner going to prison is that they're not going to cheat on you.
That's what I mean. But there is no silver lining here, is there? Because if somebody's going to, and this is a known fact, and for anybody that's listening out there, if somebody's going to cheat, they will cheat. There's nothing you can do to stop it from happening.
Going to prison.
Not even bars or prison.
Wow. This is a little bit controversial. I'm going to say it. What about not having women working in prisons, male prisons?
Oh, I don't know. Is that an option? I don't actually know. That is a really controversial thing. I don't think that's dealing with the problem. I think that's just like almost like sweeping things under the carpet. I think that's what it is. I think the organization needs to look at the policies. They need to look at what's going on inside these prisons, which is allowing these relationships to continue. Is it a mental health thing? Are these women isolated? Is there not enough protection put into place? Is there not enough policies put into place? So I don't think removing females altogether is the solution in this case at all.
I mean, is there any evidence of any financial motivation here? We're dealing with, I imagine, some rich people in there. If people are paid not well enough, is there anything like that, or do you think it is just this psychological need?
No, I think it's totally the psychological attraction and the thrill of it and the adrenaline rush. A lot of people actually are addicted to that adrenaline rush of actually having an affair with inmates or having sex with inmates, because it's one of these things where you keep going back to it again and again because of how it makes you feel. So I don't think there's any financial gain in this situation at all. It is all about emotions. It's psychological. It's attraction. And it is very, very primitive, this connection.
Is there any evidence of it going the other way with male prison guards in female prisons?
I don't know if there's evidence of it, but I don't see why that wouldn't happen, to be honest, because the psychology and the attraction and that magnetic pull is going to be the same. So even if the sexes were reversed and it was the other way around, that phenomenon is still going to be there.
Yeah, it's definitely reported far less. We have a clip now of one of these guards in prison. No, we don't. I'm joking. That would be pretty amazing.
I wasn't told about this.
This obviously goes to why phenomenon of this idea of women being attracted, as you said at the very beginning, to this kind of this bad boy energy. What can those of us who, you know, are just sort of weedy good guys, is there anything that we could do to tap into that, or are we kind of out of luck?
No, I think everybody just needs to stay away from the bad boy energy. I think you just need to go for people that are stable, secure, and actually have routines and structures. I think is really, really important. Like, the bad boy energy is never going to end well, ever, ever, ever. I don't know anybody that's entered a relationship, had the bad boy energy, and it's actually ended well. It's just going to be a relationship of emotional turmoil and turbulence, and it's going to be toxic. Even if it's not toxic at the start, I guarantee you 99.9% is going to end up in toxicity.
Yeah, is that the advice that you would give then to anybody, any women out there who are thinking of getting into the prison service? Is that what you'd say to them?
Yeah, because that bad boy energy is not good. What it does is it stops the logical thinking, it stops the rational thinking. You start actually thinking very impulsively and also very emotionally, which means that you will always make the wrong decision.
Yeah, well, just don't talk to my wife. I don't want her to leave me. She loves that bad boy energy. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. That's Cameron Kaur. Lovely to see you. So, still to come in tonight's show, as Elon Musk admits slimming down with the aid of weight loss jabs, should we be relying on medicine to keep ourselves trim? And will the world's newfound obsession with slimming injections end in tears? So we have a lot more to show. We've got the papers coming up. We've got the panel. I think this monologue is going to kind of upset quite a few people. We'll see. Obviously, New Year's coming up. We have an argument about AI. Is it going to kill us? I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to find out soon. And please don't go online and find any of those clips that we've just been talking about. Now, stick around, watch the messages, and find out what's going to happen. Thank you so much for joining us for the first hour. We'll see you for the next hour in a few minutes. This is Josh Howie tonight, only on GB News. And now we are going to have the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into this weekend, there's still going to be lots of cloud and murk around, also some drizzle, but likely to see some brighter skies by the time we reach Sunday. And where we're seeing those areas of more persistent rain and drizzle is just to the far northwest of the country, where we do have a frontal system. And elsewhere, we do have high pressure, bringing lots of settled conditions, but lots of cloud and moisture trapped underneath that high. And it remains fairly similar as we head into the overnight period. Still plenty of cloud around, a chance we could see some drizzle with more persistent areas of rain just to the far northwest of Scotland, slowly edging its way into western parts of Northern Ireland by the early hours of Saturday. And those cloudy skies means temperatures aren't going to change too much compared to what they were during the day, mostly in the mid-single figures. To start off the weekend then, across the northwest of Scotland, a damp start with outbreaks of rain, but to the very far north we may see some clearer spells, though we can't rule out some showers just moving in around coasts. And elsewhere across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, still plenty of cloud around, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just to the west of Northern Ireland, and fairly similar across England and Wales too. Cloudy with some fog around, some plenty of grey skies around to start the weekend too, and still some drizzly outbreaks, particularly around hilly areas. And it remains fairly similar through much of the day, though those longer spells of rain just moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England towards the end of the day. And clearer to the north of this, may see some sunny spells here, but still plenty of showers moving in around coasts. And temperatures around the same, once again struggling under cloudier skies, so feeling chilly where you do see the grey skies. And then for Sunday, once again, still plenty of cloud around, but by the afternoon likely to see a few more sunnier spells, but still plenty of rain across Scotland and some quite strong winds here at times for the second half of the weekend too. But on the whole, likely the better day of the weekend for many, but turning unsettled as we head into the new year with strong winds and some heavy outbreaks of rain.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, it's 10 p.m, I'm Josh Howie, and tonight, Elon Musk is the latest celebrity to jump on the skinny jab bandwagon after revealing he's using the King Kong of weight loss drugs, Mounjaro. But should we be using diabetes drug to shift just a few pounds? Also, could artificial intelligence be the end of humanity? It may sound like science fiction, but the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, thinks it could be a science fact. Plus, blackout, black market, blackmail. Why am I saying these words? Because pharmacists can't. According to the chair of the industry's largest union, these words have racial undertones and suggested neutral alternatives instead. And we'll be bringing you tomorrow's front pages, hot off the press. Joining me this evening, Head of Communications for the IEA, Reem Ibrahim, former Tory MP Tom Hunt, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anasiobi. We've got another fiery hour of debate to get stuck into, so don't move a muscle. Is this going to be the first January when gym membership doesn't go up? Recent figures from wholesale drug suppliers reveal that more than 500,000 British people are buying weight loss medications from private pharmacies. These drugs have been big news over the last year. I'm sure you've heard of some variation of them. Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic. They sound like rubbish superheroes. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? It's Ozempic, here to suppress your appetite and make your food digest slower. The NHS started prescribing Wegovy a few months ago, but only through a specialist weight centre. If they're too far to walk to, I'm afraid it won't be until next summer that you can get them from your GP if you can get an appointment. With the NHS only supplying 35,000 people so far, there are obviously many more desperate now and hence happy to pay the £150 to £200 a month for the seeming miracle cure. Now, on the face of it, all of this is a good thing. Yes, the drugs are pretty expensive, but the costs will get lower, and they're nothing compared to the £100 billion that obesity is estimated to cost the UK each year. 19 billion of it as a direct bill to the NHS. Obesity causes over 80 illnesses, from depression to diabetes to heart attacks. It's the second biggest cause of cancer. Now, with these drugs, people have the chance to live healthier lives, and their quality of life is going to be better. So I say again, surely this is a win-win, right? Well, Elon Musk seems to think so. Posting a picture of himself on Christmas Day captured Ozempic Santa, he's certainly looking a bit more svelte. And so convinced is he about the value of these drugs that a couple of weeks ago he said nothing would do more to improve the health, lifespan and quality of life for Americans than making GLP inhibitors super low cost to the public. Nothing else is even close. Personally, I'm not so sure. First, there's the possible side effects: gallbladder issues, stomach paralysis, pancreatitis. Musk himself stopped using a previous variation that made him burp and fart. He should have just come and hung out at my house. There's no judgment there. More concerning, though, is that those taking these drugs will most likely become medicalised for life, as people who do come off them, on average, regain 2/3 of their previous weight in a year, which points to what I think is the real problem. All these drugs do is deal with the symptoms and not the cause. The cause is our food industry's over-reliance on processed food and the substitution of cheaper, unhealthier and altered carbs for the good stuff. Now, I don't want to get all conspiracy theory. They want to make more money. We want food and cooking to be easier and cheaper and more convenient and, yes, yummier. This is on all of us. But we as a society have become addicted to their products. Crisps, biscuits, cereals, sweets, fast food. And they have become addicted to our dosh. Over a quarter of us are now obese. Another 38% are overweight, and it's getting worse. And most disturbingly, 1 in 8 2 to 10-year-olds are already obese. If our food production and consumption is the problem, it's not weight loss drugs that are the solution. They're a Band-Aid. Big food damages us on the front end. Big pharma gets us on the back end. Billions and billions are made. And we pay for it with our wallet and with our health. And not just that, we pay for it with a diminished sense of agency as humans. Are we in control of ourselves? Is this just another cop-out, another way of not taking responsibility for our actions, of handing over our choices to the large corporations? And I get it, losing weight is difficult. Not putting on weight is difficult. I'm being a massive hypocrite. Literally, I've got a couple of stone I've got to lose here, OK? Cooking is a pain. It takes time and effort. Buying quality, unprocessed food is a pain. I'm going to go home after this and I'm going to book an Uber Eats and it's going to be so, so delicious. But come New Year's or any other time when I've finally had enough and finally I'm going to get my act together, what I don't want to do is lose the weight if it means I lose a bit more of myself. OK, let's get my thoughts from the panel. I'm just going randomly. I'm not choosing anybody on weight. I want to say that very clearly.
Pick me, I'm the fittest.
You're JJ, yes. It's got the muscles.
I could not agree with you more. It's absolutely ridiculous. Look, you can take Ozempic or Mount Kilimanjaro, whatever it's called, and you can have less of an appetite, but ultimately it doesn't change your eating habits. If you want to eat 20 donuts, maybe now you can only eat 1 donut, but it's not making you healthier. What it's doing is making you...
It does change your eating habits.
No, it doesn't change your eating habits. Well, OK, it reduces...
reduces the amount that you eat.
Yes, but it's not saying... It doesn't make you say, I'm going to eat carrots and sprouts and broccoli.
Yeah,
you're still eating bad.
It's still bad for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Not good
But I
nourishment.
think
it's lazy.
Eat 1 rather than 20.
But sorry, Reem, it's completely lazy.
So
you don't say to an alcoholic, OK, we're going to get you off alcohol by giving you alcohol every day, but just less of it. No, that's called California sober. What you need to do is just change your lifestyle completely. Losing weight. Look, losing weight is hard. Being motivated to go to the gym is difficult. I understand that. But giving people Ozempic, all that does is say, you want to be fat and undisciplined. OK, here's a magic pill. Take it.
So I totally disagree with JJ. I think
sure, shock.
It's allowing adults to choose safer and healthier alternatives. Now,
they're not just eating healthier options.
No.
But this is the point. JJ's absolutely right. You should be doing more exercise. You should be eating healthier. But a quarter of the population are obese. So clearly, the current guidance is not working.
There is no, it's not the guidance.
What we're being supplied, right?
Well, you have the choices, right? If you want to make a choice and eat healthier, then you can.
But if it's an addictive choice,
I don't believe that you can be addicted to sugar or addicted.
Well, you are. You are.
I don't believe that. I think that's.
Well, it's true. You can be.
I think what is true is that adults should be allowed to make safer and healthier choices. Now, if we have a product, Ozempic, which is allowing adults to lose the weight, and we're reducing the cost of the National Health Service, we are allowing adults to become healthier, why don't we do it? Why are we saying, oh, it's too lazy? Why should we not just allow adults to do what makes them healthier?
I understand the upside here, but Tom, do you agree with what I'm saying about the downsides of it?
Well, my view has changed slightly, actually, over the course of this discussion. I really don't know...
That's good. That's the purpose.
I really don't know a huge amount about this. I'm no medical expert. But something about it makes me feel a bit nervous. I think sometimes when things sound too good to be true, it's because they are. And I think that you can't just magic away the difficult decisions we have to make to get the kind of body that we're happy with and to combat some of the health issues that come with being obese. And I just think we need to know a lot more about these things, and I certainly do before I can sort of say this is something I'm really comfortable with.
We all know that obesity is a killer. Here we have a solution to obesity, and none of you seem to want it.
Here's the thing.
This is absurd.
Reem,
we all know that it's bad for us to be fat.
Reem.
Here is a solution, and suddenly you say, no, I don't want it.
As I said, is it the solution, or is it just dealing with something after the fact? The solution would be a healthy diet.
Yeah.
Right? That's the ideal.
Reem. Most people who are obese in this country, the biggest area is in those who are working class, those who live on council, those in poorer areas. So on my council estate, we've got a Chinese takeaway, a Turkish, a pizza place, a chicken shop. We've got the alcohol off licenses that are selling stuff around the clock, and you've also got the gambling shops. All the addictions are in the same areas. You go to the richest areas, you don't have all these options of takeaways. And then you say, we're going to give you guys a pill. Of course there are, but what I'm saying is, for the lowest socioeconomic group in this country, those addictions are put on their doorstep. They're not the same. They're not the same in the richest areas. Sorry, just what I'd further add is that to then say we're going to give you this pill, but actually it's £200 a month for this pill to help you lose weight. That means again we are giving the rich people the option. The poorest people in society do not get the option to do that. What would be better is what would be better? 35,000. That's nowhere near enough.
By the summer next year, it'll be available in the National Health Service.
35,000 people.
JJ, if your opposition to Ozempic is that it's only accessible for wealthy people, that's just not true.
Tom, do you think the taxpayers should be funding this?
I don't think they should be funding this.
Even if it saves taxpayers money?
I don't think they should be. I don't think they should be funding. And also, let's be clear: if you lose a whole load of weight through hard work and through going to the gym and eating healthily, that's of considerable more benefit to that individual than having this particular.
Totally, but a quarter of people are not doing that. So why not give them a solution that is going to make them healthier?
Quarter. I mean, it's
more than a quarter of adults.
2/3 of us are overweight.
I just, this is absolutely baffling that we're sitting here and saying that obesity is a killer. We know that it's harmful for adults. We know that it's a huge problem in this country, and here is a solution, and we don't want it. This is absolutely absurd.
It's not saying that it's not that we don't want it as such. It's that this is, I don't think, sorting the actual problem out.
Pay for this.
I don't think the taxpayer should pay for the National Health Service altogether, but that's a separate question. I think that as the current healthcare system is set up, there is absolutely no reason why Ozempic shouldn't be available in the NHS.
But isn't there an argument to say that if you're somebody who does actually is responsible and you don't get yourself obese, and why should you be having to pay for a poor lifestyle choice?
I would say that about smokers. We could say that. Tom, that's actually an entire question about the NHS itself, and I would abolish the NHS. I think that the National Health Service is an abysmal healthcare system.
You really took it there.
We have the second highest avoidable mortality rates in all of Western Europe, and that is a direct effect of a socialised healthcare system.
Right, but Ozempic.
That being said, I think Tom, that exact point kind of answers that question, right? That actually, should anybody be paying for anybody else's healthcare? I think no. Which is why we should.
I just want to go to JJ's point here, because people with jobs, they get home late. It's a convenience that that's why these takeaways exist. It's not that they're lazy. It's people are time deficient, cash deficient. They're a cheaper way. Buying healthy food takes time and it takes money.
Yeah.
Isn't it better to invest in giving people? I think in America, this is one of the programs they're talking about coming through under Trump, is to actually spend a far smaller amount of money to help people to eat better.
It would be. I would still rather, and my partner she's American. The food consumption over there is ridiculous. The ingredients they put in their foods is making people fatter, faster, and the portion sizes are bigger. There's a reason why in, say, for example, Afro-Caribbean families and Asian families who are in Britain, staple foods like rice. You can cook rice, it's cheap, it's affordable, you can cook a huge vat of it, and that can last you 2-3 days. You know exactly what I'm talking about, rather than having the ability to say, oh, we're really hungry, let's throw this £1 pizza in the oven. The kids are full, but there's no nutrients in it. We need to teach people to cook better and make healthier choices.
This makes me really nervous. There's a whole load of health issues associated with this drug that we just don't really know enough about right now. You touched upon some of them. I also think this argument that this could save us money because people would be less obese. It could have the opposite effect, because it creates a society in which people think, oh, there's just an easy way out of this. I don't have to go to the gym anymore. I don't have to do physical.
Well, this was my main.
The point is they're not going to the gym in the first place.
You can't magic this issue away. We've got to grapple with some of these much more tougher, more difficult things to grapple with, which is, healthier food, getting people to move.
You're totally right.
This is a lot more difficult, but it's a much more pure and it's a much better approach.
I think you're both totally right that the plan A should always be encouraging people to eat healthier and to exercise more. But unfortunately, as we've already outlined, more than a quarter of people in this country are obese. They're not doing that. So why not give them a solution which would actually make them healthier? Can I also make a very small point, which is a bit more lighthearted? I think we've all had the discussion. I've got a colleague at the IEA who has a theory about why we are much more obese in this country than we are in, say, France. It's because cheating on your partner is much more commonly acceptable in France than it is in the UK. So, actually,
where did this go?
A lot of polling suggests that cheating is now actually
So
seen
you're saying
as...
we should all move to France?
Maybe it's the fear that actually your partner could go and find someone else that means that you stay in shape. But actually, in the UK, you know your partner's not going to go anywhere else. So actually...
So speak for yourself, really. Where's your partner?
That's why my wife is the feeder.
Just trying to keep... Yeah, exactly. Maybe.
Ever since I've had this haircut, certainly. Well, great. OK, well, that was a great debate there. Time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. Here's all the details you need to win a whopping £50,000 in cash. We've just been talking about lots of sex stuff from around the world and in history. It's been fascinating. Coming up next, could artificial intelligence cause the end of humanity within 30 years? The so-called godfather of AI is warning of exactly that. We're going to learn more after this break. This is Josh Howie Tonight, only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As Strictly Come Dancing approaches its iconic Blackpool episode, marking halfway through the competition, visually impaired dancers across the country have spoken out about how groundbreaking the casting of Chris McCausland is, who suffers from, if I hope I'm saying this correctly, retinitis pigmentosa, and they've found him particularly inspiring. We've been talking, Sean, about how the casting of Strictly has been inspiring to so many people, but I imagine there'll be lots of people who are watching this at home finding your story of resilience really inspiring, because you've obviously really been through it. Is dancing something that has sort of, you know, helped keep you going through all of those troubles? And what does it mean to you to see casting like this on a show like Strictly Come Dancing?
Like I say, all the things I went through. So those 9 years when I wasn't dancing, you know, I was still dancing in my head and just banging on to other people. Very much not just people with sight loss. You know, I've been a big advocate for people with social isolation. So many people on their own now, social anxiety, especially since COVID. And I just want people to get out. The stuff that I'm doing and all the stuff Christys is obviously doing, it will inspire others. Again, like I say, just not people just with sight loss. I had so many people come up to me in the early days, guys, and now that say, you know what, Shawnee, I've seen you do it, so I'm just going to do it. But you just got to get over yourself, because if you
Get over yourself.
if you bother to do the maths, because all it is maths and walking.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Maths and walking actually sounds quite difficult.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, come on, mate. Can you shout? Can you walk? Crack on.
Sean, you're an inspiration. Thank you, mate, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. You're a star, and so glad.
Just before I go, I'm just going to say this is Kev. Here's Kev.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Josh Howie. The so-called godfather of AI says there is a 10 to 20% chance that artificial intelligence will lead to the extinction of humans within the next 3 decades. Geoffrey Hinton, who won a Nobel Prize in physics for his work, said humans would be like toddlers compared with the intelligence of highly powerful AI systems. But is this just fear-mongering about new technologies, or will we actually be wiped out by our own creation? I'm joined now by Keegan McBride, an AI lecturer at the Oxford Internet Institute. Hello. Yes, you look like you know stuff. You look brainy.
Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment, and
You
thanks for the
should.
invitation.
A handsome brainy guy.
This is somewhat unsurprising to hear from Geoffrey Hinton. Is kind of what he says.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are kind of annoyed by it at this point. There are sort of a few folks who are jetting around the world talking about how the end is nigh. But luckily for us, there's also a whole lot of people who disagree with this and have been pretty vocal at pushing back.
So is this a narrative that he's been trying to push then?
Yeah, I mean, even in 2015 or something like that, there was a New Yorker article that covered the Future of Humanity Institute, and there was a talk where he was there, hinting at these fears that if we do create some sort of super general intelligence, we won't be able to control it. It will do with us what it likes. This was really popular when sort of ChatGPT 3.5 came out. It was this new tool. People were like, oh, I can have AI write my emails for me. But since then, there's been a lot more sort of calm, people thinking about things seriously. A lot of the risks that people said were coming haven't happened. We were told that this year of the super election year, AI was going to ruin democracy, spread misinformation. Didn't happen. We've been warned about how AI is going to lead to new cyber attacks and bioweapons and things like that. Hasn't happened. And in fact, a lot of the emerging academic research says it's pretty much unlikely to happen, especially with the current models. It's just hyperbole. It's fear. It's a different world than what we actually live in.
You don't think that, well, maybe now, but you don't think there's anything to it? I mean, what he's talking about is, of course, 20, 30 years from now. Do you not think that there are those threats? I mean, he's talking about 10%. Would you give it any percentage?
Look, I mean, I think in the sort of case of any new technological advancement where there could be these sort of hypothetical risks, if we want to go out 30, 40, 50 years into the future, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know what it's going to do by then. It probably makes sense to have somebody thinking about these sorts of things, but that means doing science, creating new methodologies for evaluating things. It doesn't mean creating new regulations, stopping progress, saying, I'm so scared of this technology, we're just not going to build it. And we also don't have this luxury because adversaries to sort of democratic worldviews are doing the exact opposite, making huge investments into AI, trying to create an AI-based world order that's aligned with their sorts of values, which I can guarantee you are not democratic in nature or supportive the sort of current world order. And that is, in my mind, an even more dangerous future to end up in.
Okay, so is that what you consider to be the main threat of AI? Is this kind of the controlling, but from humans using AI to control us?
Yeah, I think it's certainly something that policymakers need to be thinking about. There are the other issues that people have been sort of raising awareness of when you're using AI to make decisions for, let's say, the delivery of public services. How do you make sure that these aren't biased? There are these real tangible ways that AI is already having impacts on people today. And, I think it's fine and important that people think through some of these things. if you look at the resources that are being devoted to promote this viewpoint that we should stop AI and in the next 20 years it's going to wipe us all out, it's completely disproportionate with the likelihood that that's going to happen, which I would put pretty close to zero. It's a bit frustrating, really.
So what do you think has been the immediate impact of AI then?
Well, I think what you can see is that there's actually a huge positive potential when it comes to AI. It's doing everything from driving sort of improvements in science and development. It's improving healthcare. It's helping to sort of improve accessibility of services. It's creating new opportunities for economic development and bringing up sort of creating economic opportunities for people living in developing countries. The positives are vast. And for some reason, these are not being talked about nearly as much as they should be.
Yeah, so I mean, is there any sort of immediate examples from that you can point to in people's lives that they may not even be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly quite a lot. Basically, every other day in the BBC, you'll hear of some sort of new AI use case.
I said benefit to people's lives.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
No, sorry.
So, fair enough.
We use AI here actually as well. We have our, I believe, our sports bulletins are said by AI, which is that? I mean, is that a benefit to people? It's a benefit to us.
I think
it saves us the sports.
It depends on who you ask. I mean, there's certainly a lot of folks probably listening to this program as well who are scared of AI. They think it's going to take their job, that it's going to sort of disrupt the world and the economy and the way that we know it. But once again, that's just not something that I think the sort of research and statistics show. There's going to be a lot of upskilling. There's going to be a lot of productivity gain.
But people may lose their jobs as well, right? There's a lot of threat.
It depends on who you ask. I think that a lot of the sort of worst case scenarios are probably not what we will end up seeing.
Well, creative industries, though, there's arguments.
Creative industries, once again, but I mean, like, it's also super empowering, right? Yeah. If now me sitting in my basement or something.
TV producers, that's what I'm hearing in my ear. They're terrified in the booth over there. They're worried. Presenters are fine.
I think everybody is going to be fine. It's just it's a completely normal reaction when there's this new technology you don't understand. People are screaming at the TV saying, hey, if you don't let me control this, it's going to end the world in 10, 20 years. And a lot of people are just going to say, yeah, that makes sense. This guy is important. We should trust him. But actually behind the scenes, what they're doing is robbing themselves of a whole lot of potential. Your kids are going to have education created and sort of education opportunities that they never had before. The government and the healthcare service can work more effectively and efficiently than they've ever done. This requires people to actually put in the work to sort of build these systems, to put in the sort of work in developing and innovating and creating sort of policies around it. But you can't do that when you're listening to a handful of people who are screaming about how this technology is going to end the world. And it's even worse when that's not based in fact or the empirical reality within, which we live. It's simply just, sort of grasping numbers out of thin air.
Fair enough. Keegan, I got one very quick final question to ask you. You said you're an AI lecturer at the Oxford Internet Institute. If one of your students submitted an essay to you written by AI, I'm assuming that means you're going to give them an A, right? Then you've done your job.
I would defer to the university policy on this, which I think is actually quite strict and probably views it as plagiarism. But there's going to be a lot of work that needs to go on sort of behind the scenes, and the education sector in particular is going to have a lot of work ahead of it to figure out how to work with this. But I would see it more as a tool of empowerment than something to be feared or scared of. It's here, and we need to stop pretending like it's not.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Keegan.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure. That was Keegan McBride from the Oxford Internet Institute. Thank you. Coming up, we bring you the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press, which I'll get stuck into with tonight's panel of top pundits in 3 short minutes.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. as we head into this weekend. There's still going to be lots of cloud and murk around, also some drizzle, but likely to see some brighter skies by the time we reach Sunday. And where we're seeing those areas of more persistent rain and drizzle is just to the far northwest of the country, where we do have a frontal system, and elsewhere we do have high pressure, bringing lots of settled conditions, but lots of cloud and moisture trapped underneath that high. And it remains fairly similar as we head into the overnight period. Still plenty of cloud around, a chance we could see some drizzle with more persistent areas of rain just to the far northwest of Scotland, slowly edging its way into western parts of Northern Ireland by the early hours of Saturday. And those cloudy skies means temperatures aren't going to change too much compared to what they were during the day, mostly in the mid-single figures. To start off the weekend then, across the northwest of Scotland, a damp start with outbreaks of rain, but to the very far north we may see some clearer spells, though we can't rule out some showers just moving in around coasts. And elsewhere across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, still plenty of cloud around, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just to the west of Northern Ireland, and fairly similar across England and Wales too. Cloudy with some fog around, some plenty of grey skies around to start the weekend too, and still some drizzly outbreaks, particularly around hilly areas. And it remains fairly similar through much of the day, though those longer spells of rain just moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England towards the end of the day. And clearer to the north of this, may see some sunny spells here, but still plenty of showers moving in around coasts. And temperatures around the same, once again struggling under cloudier skies, so feeling chilly where you do see the grey skies. And then for Sunday, once again, still plenty of cloud around, but by the afternoon likely to see a few more sunnier spells, but still plenty of rain across Scotland and some quite strong winds here at times for the second half of the weekend too. But on the whole, likely the better day of the weekend for many, but turning unsettled as we head into the new year with strong winds and some heavy outbreaks of rain.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. This is Josh Howie Tonight, only on GB News. Our first front pages have just been delivered. We have the Daily Express. 2024 was year of the cancer vaccine. iWeekend. Water firms fined just £2 by Watchdog despite record sewage levels. The Times. Grants and cheap loans to install solar panels. And the Daily Telegraph. Farage. Musk will help us to beat Tories. Lots of very interesting stories there. Let's just go chronologically. The Express, 2024 was the year of the cancer vaccine. Obviously, we had two of our royals getting cancer, recovering, hopefully, fully now. And this is good news, right? Good way. Yeah, I'm not going to say, obviously, you're not going to go, yeah, this is terrible news.
Yeah, I mean, it's the wonders of modern technology, you know, and it's very, very heartening. And I think it's.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling it, so Cancer Research UK are calling it the golden age of development, and they say that more products and projects than ever were receiving funding, which has meant that those vaccines for cancer have been going through a renaissance. It is really wonderful news, and I completely agree with Tom. I think that it's a proof that technological advancements are occurring and that we are getting healthier and cleverer when it comes to science more now than ever before.
Well, the interesting thing, though, JJ, is that this is actually long-term planning, isn't it? It's not like just this year they went, oh, we're now going to put some money into cancer. This has been a long-time concern, and now we're seeing these benefits.
Yeah, and it's great we have these, like Cancer Research UK, these charities, but ultimately, these charities exist because people like you and I are giving money to them. It's not just governments who are funding it, it's we, the public, who are funding these charities.
I bought this tie-in Cancer Research.
Oh.
So I've done my bit. Welcome, everybody.
It's very good. Tech advancements are great. I think that we actually should liberalise it more and deregulate it more, but I think that this is some positive news.
This is a big fan. I'll hook you up with that, our last guest after the show. Let's move on to iWeekend. This is something that really does upset me. Water firms fined just £2 by Watchdog despite record sewage levels. This story is just going on, and they're just not getting on top of it. They have taken our money for decades now, these water companies. They haven't invested, and now we're paying the price. I
thought this is all going to be sorted out by Labour.
Well...
I was a Conservative, when I was a Conservative MP, and I just constantly got all this stuff from Labour saying if they were in power, this would be dealt with.
Well,
give them time.
When these figures, give them 5 months in power. But there's something that needs to be sorted. It has been not focused on for a long time now.
Yeah.
Now this idea that some of these companies are going to close, then it's going to double water bills for everybody else. And the fact that... But why are the water firms finding them just...
£2 quid. Ofwat are not Ofwat are not fit for purpose. They ain't fit for purpose. And if it's disgusting that these shareholders, some of whom are, listen, I'm not against foreigners, as one myself, but it's disgusting that some of these companies the shareholders are foreign entities making money off the British people. And as you say, siphoning it away, and they can say, we're out, we're done, and we're still going to suffer even more. Reem, go on, defend them. Go on, Reem. Defend Ofwat.
Ban water, don't you?
I would like to privatise water and actually do it properly.
It is privatised.
That's the problem.
That is the problem.
This is the problem. So what we currently have is a government-created monopoly. So the government have created these public utilities.
How do you make water not a monopoly?
Well, no, you absolutely can. People said this about electricity, and yet we were able to do it. And there are other countries across the world that have been able to do it. What we currently have is the worst of both worlds. We've got private companies that we've sold from the public sector to the private sector that are being regulated by the public sector. They're being regulated by Ofwat. So we might as well nationalise it, to be completely honest, as long as we actually get those particular...
What, do you want to nationalise it or privatise it? Which one is it?
I want privatisation, but we've not done it properly, is my point.
So
we've got Ofwat, which regulate it and do a very poor job. And what we have is those companies that don't have the reason why privatisation works in other areas is because you've got competition and choice. We don't have competition or choice in the water industry.
I think we can see that this is, in practice, actually tackling this issue isn't necessarily as straightforward as Labour made it out in opposition.
No.
Sort of 6-7 months into a Labour government, we're still getting these front pages. Maybe we might not be getting them this time next year.
Tom, your government had them for 14 years and they didn't solve it. You've given Labour 6 months.
What I don't understand is how they'd be fined just £2. How does that... I don't even understand how that works. Let's move on to the Times now. Grants and cheap loans to install solar panels. Green offer for households as part of a £6.6 billion plan. What do you guys think about this?
Well, there's millions of homeowners that are being given grants and cheap loans in order to convert their properties to solar power as part of that government's attempt to hit 2030 clean energy. I think that a lot of this is part of the attempt to make us poorer through achieving the net zero target. I think we should scrap the net zero target. I think that we should allow technological advancements to occur, and instead of spending huge amounts of money, huge amounts of taxpayer money to achieve net zero, we should actually achieve net zero through the private sector rather than making the British people poorer.
But sorry, go on, Tom.
I generally already thought this was happening.
Yes.
It doesn't seem overly seismic, like this story, like in terms of like what contribution it's going to make in terms of tackling. I mean, it's
£6.6 billion.
It doesn't. I don't find it particularly particularly exciting. Actually.
Well, you know what? JJ, let's have.
Well, I was just going to say that when Jeremy Corbyn, when he was running when he was running, he was saying he wants to insulate every house in Britain, and he got laughed out. Everyone said it's ridiculous, it's crazy. Now every government wants to do what Jeremy Corbyn said he was going to do. Maybe we should have Jeremy Corbyn instead of Keir Starmer.
No.
Don't, please. Don't
be silly. Don't be silly, JJ.
Now, this is arguably the big story of the day. It's been dragging on a little bit, but this is the next level of it. Farage, Musk will help us to beat the Tories. Now, there's been talk of this cash, this supposed 100 million. Farage says it's nothing like that. But the point that he's making here, of course, is that Musk can help out maybe in a much more substantial manner than just giving this money. Right, Tom? I mean, would it make a difference, do you think?
Money will always make a difference. If a political party has money, you'd much rather have lots of money than have no money. Look, there's a big challenge here for the Conservative Party, and it needs to respond accordingly. No one party on the right owns all voters on the right. You've got to make the case to those voters, and millions of people who voted for our party in the past have become disillusioned, and we've got to be their champion again.
But to have Musk backing reform as he backed Trump, just forget the finances here, but his expertise, those are things that you would want as on Tories.
Yeah, he's an incredibly successful business person who, had an influence on the US election. But look, the Conservative Party have got a new leader who's been in place for a short period of time. She has, in my view, some real potential, and I think she has it within.
I'd agree.
She has it within her to be a great leader. She's finding her feet. Her legacy is incredibly difficult. But look, we as a party, we seriously let people down. Seriously let people down. Yeah. And I myself, when I see those immigration figures on the screen, it just makes me angry. I was one of those MPs. He said repeatedly, if we don't get on top of these things, there'll be a vacuum on the right and it will be filled by a Farage-type entity. That's exactly what's happened. And you know what? Some people still haven't smelt the coffee in the Conservative Party, and that's what concerns me.
That's the exact problem, right? There are some people within the Conservative Party that still don't believe that this is a problem. And I disagree with Tom on immigration, but I think that you're absolutely right. The public feel this way. And the Conservative government have presided over the highest tax burden since the Second World War. They've presided over record levels of immigration. And ultimately, people do not feel economically better off now than they did 10, 14 years ago. So this is a fundamental existential problem for the Conservatives. Now, if Musk himself is able to financially support support reform, it will absolutely boost those figures. The thing is, reform actually, and Nigel Farage himself, actually come across as though they believe in something. The Conservative Party, I don't know, actually understand or believe.
Well, as you say, Kemi Badenoch is finding her feet.
She is, but the question is, what does being a Conservative mean? What does it mean to be a Conservative when you're presiding over high... Well, this is it. You like the colour blue.
It's refreshing... Sorry to cut you off, but it's refreshing to hear an MP speak like this. Tom, I know you're a former MP. If more of your colleagues in the Tory party spoke like this, they'd be winning over those people who are going in flux to reform.
About it, but what do they actually do when they're in government?
Well, I think Kemi Badenoch has actually acknowledged it.
I backed Kemi in 2022.
I thought that Conservatives were mental not voting her at that point, to be honest.
This time round, I was very torn this time.
She's ready now, but get ready, don't you?
But she is somebody who believes in things, and she's somebody who I think has demonstrated courage at various points.
Great communicator.
So I think she's got a big job on her hands, and we've got to get rid of this Labour government, in my view. And that's going to be much harder to do with the right split.
All right, well, look, coming up, we've got more of tomorrow's newspapers' front pages, plus the panel's nomination for tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. So don't move muscle. This is Josh Howie Tonight, only on GB News. It is.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's a lot of fine weather to come across many of the usual holiday hotspots in southern Europe through the next few days. A different story across the southeast of Europe, though. Here's Storm Elena bringing some heavy rain, strong winds across parts of Greece into Cyprus and into Turkey as well. Elsewhere, though, like I said, lots of dry weather on offer, and with that, lots of sunshine too. So not looking too bad at all if you're heading across many parts of southern Europe through the next couple of days. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? The Times. It's so funny the Times did this story, because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I open the Times, and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That passenger got through, or almost got through, one episode. One James Bond movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink. Let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you know, commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
It's so expensive. You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years. Yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Josh Howie. We're going to get straight back into the papers. We have the Daily Mail. Labour's £400 tax hit to your family holiday. The Mirror, PM's heartache as brother dies of cancer. The Sun, Mean United. And the Daily Star, Ghost of Diana found me a husband. First of all, I'd like to actually just quickly talk about the Mirror here. I'm very sorry to Keir Starmer about your brother. That's really just horrible for anybody. And anyway, just saying sorry to you. Now we're going to, unfortunately, criticise your government. But on a personal note, that's a tragedy.
Yeah.
So let's look to the Daily Mail. Labour's £400 tax hit to your family holiday. More costs for regular people who just want to get away and enjoy their lives.
Indeed. I mean, it's increases in taxation, so this is air passenger duty. So when you fly long haul, it does mean that the tax increases that we saw in the budget in October are going to significantly impact your family holiday and the cost, and that money is, of course, going to the government, the tax man. So this is a £400 tax hike.
In this case.
Or tax woman, indeed, Rachel
Broken that ceiling.
So it's an analysis that shows that airfare levies for a family of 4 to popular destinations such as Walt Disney World in Florida will surge above £400 for the first time.
For me, it'd be about £5,000.
Well,
yeah.
And it will surge by about £400.
Now, look, I understand this is bad news and it's a terrible move from Labour, but most Britons are not going to be going to places that are long haul. The majority of Britons fly to Europe.
But even if it's a couple $100 quid.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a lot of money.
It's still, yeah, but it's not going to affect people going to Malaga or Barcelona for the summer holidays.
The government and the Labour Party throughout the election said we are not going to tax working people, and lo and behold, they've taxed working people. They said, and this is the significant difference between the impact of tax and the incidence of tax, just because they claim that they are really taxing airlines or they are really taxing employers, in reality, it is working people that foot the bill, and this is just one example of that.
And you know what will make, this is absolutely right. You know, this is going to hurt, working class people.
People who are big holiday.
People who are going through a tough phase at the moment, cost of living, who are maybe going light at the end of the tunnel, going on holiday.
Saving up for these
This
holidays.
makes it a lot. This hits them. It hits those people. It doesn't hit the very wealthy. It hits those people, the very people that Labour said they weren't going to hit. So I think that's, but it does. There's a story this week and the public will get angry when they see that MPs have been on more trips abroad than ever before, paid for by a taxpayer. Some of those trips are necessary, and I went on a few myself. But I think
lucky you.
But the thing is, things like that. I mean, in the next instance, something like that.
Yeah.
But who
does make them angry?
Who is? Okay, they did a tax hike. Is it not a case of it's the airplane companies who are pushing that cost on to the customer? But is that not the case?
No,
the shareholders are saying, well, we want to get our money still, so just charge the peasants more money.
If you run a business and you have a certain amount of costs and the government are increasing those costs, you are going to either... There are three different areas that you can impose those costs. Either on consumers, so through higher prices, could go to your shareholders, could also go to your employees through the form of lower wages or indeed firing some people.
Incorrect.
No, that's literally what's happening. So the national insurance contribution increase for employers has meant that, yes, the government are increasing taxes for employers.
Reem.
But if you are a hairdresser and you own a company and you employ about 3 or 4 hairdressers,
Please
and
don't
the
talk to me about
government...
hairdressers.
Maybe it's a bit of a sensitive
Reem,
subject.
Reem,
but you're making it more expensive to employ people.
We've just seen...
You are hurting...
I can give you an example. This week in America, the owner of the Phoenix basketball team, what are they called? The Phoenix something another. Something another. The Phoenix people. They've just reduced the cost of soft drinks and chips and hot dogs. Everything now is $2 to make it more affordable. It means the owner... Wait, let me finish. Let me finish. It means the owner is making less money each game. Phoenix, well, there you go. But however...
Corner shop,
yes, but this is not talking about a local corner shop. This is talking about British Airways. This is talking about Ryanair. It's talking about long-haul flights. Virgin, Delta. These are costs. These airlines are still making billions of profit each year, and you're saying, well, they should... it's not fair. They're going to lose a couple $100,000 quid.
Can I just say...
You know what? Sorry, because I just want to hear from Tom here, but the point is, where this money comes from, it's going to impact families, and that's really the most important.
I think air travel is a great thing. I think it's opened up the world for people. And I think it should be accessible to as many people as possible. I don't like this, and I think it goes against what Labour promised in the election.
How do you feel about supermarkets when they were making huge amounts of money?
That's a brilliant thing.
Well, actually, they make huge amounts of money.
British businesses are serving the British people.
Reem,
so
let me
well.
finish. So they could say, OK, we know minimum wage is this much, but actually we've made £2 billion this year. We can give each person more money. But you're saying they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to do that.
No, of course they shouldn't have to. Why is it up to the government to force businesses and tell them what to do?
Because otherwise we end up like America, where people are getting paid under what they should be getting paid. We've got to pay them more in tips.
You're just a communist, JJ.
Oh, no, I'm a commie. I'm a dirty commie.
You used to see them hanging out. This is what they're not like this normally. Poor old Tom on the end there. I got myself. Right, let us know now to have you guys chosen your Union Jackass for? Is it for the...
Yeah.
Let's do Greatest Britain, actually, for the year.
So I thought it was for the year. So I thought Sir Chris Hoy.
OK.
Wonderful choice.
He was my one, because not that he needed... He was already a wonderful Briton anyway, for what he achieved in the Olympics and the pride he gave us for the Olympic medals he won.
Yeah.
But at a very young age, he's been diagnosed with what is terminal cancer. And the way that he's responded to it, the strength of the courage he's shown, the work he's doing to raise awareness, I think was an inspiring example. Absolutely. And I said for him, he wins the prize.
Yeah. Reem, can you beat that? I don't think you can.
Well,
Impossible.
Maybe. Have we all seen the Gavin Stacey finale this week?
No,
you've lost it.
No.
my Greatest Britain is James Corden and Ruth Jones for their absolutely brilliant Gavin and Stacey finale this week. It was amazing. I watched the whole thing. Did you watch it?
You telling me you weren't watching this show?
Absolutely. I'm so sorry. It was wonderful. And you know what? For me, it really was the perfect finale for such a brilliant show, and I really think that they tied all those loose ends perfectly.
JJ, what about you?
The most hard-working man in the world, Father Christmas. That is my Greatest Britain.
Very good there. Well, I'm going to have to go with you, Tom. I agree, yes.
Yeah.
Very impressive human being. So let's go now to the Union Jackass, Tom.
Well, mine was David Lammy. So I think he, honestly, with some of the things he's done, I think he's brought shame to our country. I think he's our chief diplomat. I think the language he used about the current president of the United States of America is embarrassing. I think that the decision he made about export licenses to Israel, one of our key allies, and the symbol in their hour of need, pulling that support from him, I was ashamed of him for doing that. And then Chagos Islands. The Chagos Islands as well, of course.
OK, yeah. Reem, what do you...
So mine is Kemi Badenoch, and I know this is quite shocking. I quite like Kemi generally, and I think that she's done, she's not got a lot of time, and she needs some more time to lead the Conservative Party. However, this week, challenging Nigel Farage and Reform on their party membership...
That was a misstep. I would agree with that. This misstep doesn't make her a villain, but definitely a misstep. JJ would have been very...
I wasn't going to have one. I thought it's Christmas time, let it go. However, I'm giving it to Reem. Reem is my union jackass. Yeah.
I'm going Tom's 2 for 2. Yeah, David Lammy, absolutely. Right. So, coming up next, it's Headliners presented tonight by Steve and Alan. Steve, what do you have coming up on the show?
Well, you should know by now, Josh. You've done it many enough. Specifically tonight, I've got 2 top comedians who are going to be working their way through some of the stories, including the Reform versus Tories. The battle continues. We'll be taking a good, long, hard look at the size of their members. That came out wrong. We've worked out where your council tax is going to, and you won't be happy. And trigger warnings are back. That story might make you angry, which is effectively a trigger warning, so maybe I'm on their side now. It's very confusing. Find out after 11.
Yeah, I mean, you've got big shoes to fill, right?
Yeah, pretty tonight. Nice.
Headliners, obviously, I have a very soft spot because I love it. It's a great show. Please do watch it. Thank you very much to my guests, Reem, Tom, JJ, for your stellar appearance. I think you make a wonderful team. And thank you so much for joining me over this week. It's been a real privilege to be here, hopefully entertaining you. And I just want to say a big thank you to the producers. I want to say a big thank you to all the staff who worked here during the week, people in the booth who've made it, I think, a really memorable week and working during their Christmas week. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and have a great night. We've got the weather now. Bye.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into this weekend, there's still going to be lots of cloud and murk around, also some drizzle, but likely to see some brighter skies by the time we reach Sunday. And where we're seeing those areas of more persistent rain and drizzle is just to the far northwest of the country, where we do have a frontal system. And elsewhere, we do have high pressure, bringing lots of settled conditions, but lots of cloud and moisture trapped underneath that high. And it remains fairly similar as we head into the overnight period. Still plenty of cloud around, a chance we could see some drizzle with more persistent areas of rain just to the far northwest of Scotland, slowly edging its way into western parts of Northern Ireland by the early hours of Saturday. And those cloudy skies means temperatures aren't going to change too much compared to what they were during the day, mostly in the mid-single figures. To start off the weekend, then across the northwest of Scotland, a damp start with outbreaks of rain, but to the very far north we may see some clearer spells, though we can't rule out some showers just moving in around coasts. And elsewhere across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, still plenty of cloud around, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just to the west of Northern Ireland, and fairly similar across England and Wales too. Cloudy with some fog around, some plenty of grey skies around to start the weekend too, and still some drizzly outbreaks, particularly around hilly areas. And it remains fairly similar through much of the day, though those longer spells of rain just moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England towards the end of the day. And clearer to the north of this, may see some sunny spells here, but still plenty of showers moving in around coasts. And temperatures around the same, once again struggling under cloudier skies, so feeling chilly where you do see the grey skies. And then for Sunday, once again, still plenty of cloud around, but by the afternoon likely to see a few more sunnier spells, but still plenty of rain across Scotland and some quite strong winds here at times for the second half of the weekend too. But on the whole, likely the better day of the weekend for many, but turning unsettled as we head into the new year with strong winds and some heavy outbreaks of rain.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The birth rate in Britain has sunk to 1.49, well below replacement rate. Yet policies pursued by both major parties are still to spend huge sums to encourage parents back to their work when their children are still at preschool age. Should we not be helping parents to spend longer at home, asks his new book, whilst recognising that in an age of sex equality, the question is fraught. David Goodhart joins me now.
We undervalue the domestic realm, and that has led to lots of the most negative trends in British society. About half of children in the UK are not living with both of their biological parents by the age of 14. We have, of families with dependent children, about 24-25% are single-parent households. Mainly mothers, and they're doing, valiant work. But of course, it means you don't have the investment in children that a two-parent family can give. I mean, the reason why it's a care dilemma is that a lot of these negative trends are also kind of intimately related to positive things, like that movement of women into work, the fact that women are no longer so defined by marriage and motherhood, the fact that women and men are freer to leave unhappy relationships. And the challenge for modern liberal societies is, how we hold on to those freedoms but get a better balance, which means, I think, investing more in the domestic realm. We spend a total now of £9 billion on childcare subsidies. Why not give that subsidy direct to young parents so they could then choose whether to subsidise themselves, as it were, to be able to afford to stay at home, or to give it to a nursery, or to give it to granny, or to keep it in the home.
GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock on whatever day it is between Christmas and New Year, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out the new immigration plan that's got a lot of people upset. You can find out the truth about the code behind the Reform Party's ticker and why some trigger warnings are definitely needed. I'm Stephen Allen. Tonight I've got the comedians Lewis Schaefer and Archie Manners with us, talking you through tomorrow's newspapers.
What did that say?
This is Headliners. Yep, hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's top stories with three comedians. Before we dive in, let's take a look at what Lewis and Archie will have to take a look at on Saturday's front pages. We can start with the Daily Mail. Labour's £400 tax hit to your family holiday. The Telegraph goes with Farage, Musk will help us to beat Tories. The Times, grants and cheap loans to install solar panels. The Eye has water firms fined just £2 by Watchdog despite record sewage levels. Even I could afford that. The Express, 2024 was year of the cancer vaccine. And The Star goes with Ghost of Diana found me a husband. Well, hopefully we'll get to that one and find out more, but let's start with the Daily Mail, Lewis.
The Daily Mail, £1.60 tomorrow, Saturday.
Oh, so it's Friday today.
Is it Friday? Yeah, but...
Just answer the question.
Yeah, tomorrow's paper says
You've answered
Saturday.
the question from the top of the show. I don't know what day of the week it is. It's somewhere betwixt Christmas and New Year.
I just thought you were kidding when you said that. No, it is.
It's
okay.
Friday today. I know you're old, but it is Friday, I promise.
I celebrate